Okay, I'm just going to run through how to operate the imagebox 9. You can see here you've got a LCD panel which has the main indicators of the functions on the machine, and there's a black box here which you can adjust by hitting the select button, and that moves it up and cycles it round in a loop. So if you're on any one of those and you want to adjust it, you can just adjust it up or down, and I'll now just run through what these settings are. The first one here is DTAC, that's the post exposure. The second is front, that's the main exposure that makes the relief of the plate. The third one here is back, the floor, that makes the support to the stamp. This button neg we're going to use to warm the bulbs up prior to doing an exposure. H is how long the heater's going to be on. Now these are all in seconds down this side, and this side these are in minutes. So here it's set for 27 minutes, and W here is the washout. It's the length of time the washout's on for 1 minute, and the vac is just telling you when the vac's on, and that will flash. All of these indicators, when you've activated the function, will flash, and they'll count down in 2-second intervals until they hit 0, and then they'll reset. So if we go down the panel now, I'll just show you where the rest of the buttons are. So the first one, the DTAC, that's the post-exposure button that activates the main UVA and UVC bulbs that are positioned at the bottom of the exposure unit. Front is the main exposure, that's for creating the relief to the stamp. Back is for creating the floor, and when you're doing normal exposure you'll press both of these at the same time. They'll flash, there'll be a minute's delay before activating, just to allow the polymer to settle, and then they'll go on. Neg, as I said, we're going to use for warming the plates. The vacuum, this has a pull and push release, so when you've pulled it the vacuum is on, and to release it you can press it in, and you can press the vacuum on and you'll hear the vacuum engage. When the vacuum has been made, you'll hear the vacuum tone lower. This is the washout button here, the green washout, and that's to activate the heater, and this is the temperature of the that you're going to set the water to, and we'd recommend about 40 degrees C here. Lower down you've got the dryer, which is for drying the stamps, and again set the temperature to something around 45 C, and you can set the timer to what you want, and that's in minutes around here. And this is the main on-off power supply. Okay, I've opened the drawer. You can retain the upper glass lid in the clip here, it'll go in firmly. I'll just run you through the base drawer. This is Image Bright, this is a collimating filter that lets light through at 30 degrees to the vertical, and this will improve your image. The tape around here, the foam, is to allow a vacuum to be sealed between the upper glass and the lower glass. It can be replaced if it gets compressed over time. The red tape here is to stop the UV light and also to give you an area where you lay the negative down. And then you've got two bearers here which are preset in this machine, which have been set to 100th hour 2.55, but you can set them to whatever you want. The back of the drawer is free floating, and the upper glass will come down onto the bearers and will compress the sachet. So the next thing is to put the negative in, and the negative should be right reading, and then to place the image pack. And the image pack will be placed with the soft flexible side facing down, and the rigid side up, and that'll be inside the bearers. And just check that it's not overlapping anything when you do that. The glass lid can be lowered, and we can engage the vacuum. Now don't start the exposure until the vacuum has been fully engaged, and you'll see the sachet go flat. When it's flat, you can shut the door, and you can press the back and the front button to start the main and the back exposure. Now in this case I've set the back exposure to 26 seconds and the main exposure to 380. The back exposure, the lower the back exposure, the lower the floor. That's the critical time. If the bulbs are cold, you should warm the back exposure up beforehand, and we do that simply by setting in a reasonably high number there on the neg button, 200, 300 seconds, and pressing that first. I've pre-warmed this, and I've set 26 seconds. If I want to have a lower floor, then I'll set a lower time there, something like 20 seconds. If I want a higher floor, perhaps I'm holding a lot of block reverse, or I want just a higher floor because I'm holding very fine detail, then in that case I'd increase that to maybe 30 seconds. The main exposure time, anything over 350 seconds will be fine, and it's not going to, you will not see noticeable deterioration or overexposure in the plate going much above 450 seconds. So now we'll wait until the exposure is finished, and we'll cut it and wash it out and process the rest of the plate. Okay, the exposure is finished. You can open the drawer, release the vacuum, then you can open the upper lid. You can take the sachet out, and we're going to cut the side that was next to the negative. And we'll do that with a sharp blade, just running around the 4 edges. And now we can peel back to reveal the set of stamps that we've made. Now I'm going to place this onto the green sticky here, make sure that it's attached at the corners, lower it into the water, close the upper lid. It won't work unless the lid is shut, and I'm going to press the washout unit for 2 minutes. When the washout's finished, we'll lift the upper lid, retain the clip back. It's a good practice to rinse it at this stage because it's going to be covered in washout liquid, and if you post-expose it, you can post-expose that onto the sheet of stamps. So we've now made our sheet of stamps, and they're still going to be sticky and not hardened, so we need to post-expose them. So we're going to open the blower drawer. We've got some water in there, detac salt if you want. We're going to close the door, and we're going to press the detac button. Now, if you're doing a lot of production at one time, you can cycle this by putting another exposure, another imagepac in, and the light from the main exposure will go down and will post-expose the sheet of stamps. So you don't need to do them in sequence, and the main exposure time of 300 seconds will be more than enough to post-expose it. So typical times there are 250 to 300 seconds. You can't really over post-expose it, although you shouldn't leave stamps in water for a very long time as they'll absorb it. And if they're sticky, then just put them back and leave them for a bit longer. When this cycle's finished, the sheet of stamps can be rinsed, dried, and applied to your self-inker or your mount. Okay, we've finished our post-exposure. We can take our stamps out. It's a good idea to rinse them again after post-exposure, just because the water can be a little bit dirty. Now, if you look at your sheet of stamps, fine relief like this should just be held. They should have a nice angle. The dots should be strong and shouldn't be egg timer shaped. That's underexposed. And fine lines should be held and should be strong. The floor should be about 40% of the total thickness. Any lower than that and you're in danger of losing the dots or the lines wobbling. In a plate like this with reverse on it, this one's to be open, and if you extend the main exposure time too much, you could fill in this fine detail. But this is a beautiful imagepac plate that we've made very quickly and simply, and is now ready for mounting or packing or selling to your customers.